This is a review of my CNC6040Z Chinese-made CNC mill or CNC router that I got from Aliexpress. I've been thinking about buying a CNC or getting a CNC machine for some time, and I read quite a few articles on Hackaday and other forums about people building their own CNCs and what different materials they use, how they buy the stepper motors and the drivers and the different extrusions. And soon I realized that I don't really have the time for that, so I wanted something which is ready-made, so I don't have to worry about all the engineering aspects of the CNC. So I've also started looking at some of the I don't know, maybe partially cloud funded products like the Carvey or the Shapeco, but I realized that those are also slightly overpriced. Probably the Carvey is, and they don't give me the same kind of flexibility what I wanted. I mean, what I wanted especially is that I can still use my CAD program, which I'm using at the moment, and then transfer those drawings to my CNC. So the Shapeco uses some other software, and I wasn't sure if I can use my CAD programs for it. And there were quite a few other websites and companies who would sell ready-made CNCs or kits, but they were also quite expensive. Well, I don't know, I mean, for me it was quite expensive. So obviously I started looking for the Chinese manufacturers, and so I started searching on Aliexpress. So after being on Aliexpress for a couple of hours, I realized that there is basically two main types of CNCs in terms of size. One is the 3040 and the other one is the 6040 CNC, which is basically the X and Y dimensions in centimeters. So my 6040 is technically 60 centimeters times 40 centimeters. But exactly it's slightly less. I think it's about 50 centimeters by 37, which is the actual travel distance of the spindle. The machine itself is somewhat larger, obviously. And looking at the different sellers, I also realized that they essentially use the same model with slightly different electronics and a slightly different technical design, but it's more or less the same. I mean, probably saying that they are the same is a bit of an overstatement, but I don't really have the engineering background to either judge whether the one stepper motor is better than the other one, or one of the the linear guides or the ball screw is better than the other. So at the end, what I ended up doing is that I picked something which seemed to be the most common one, the ones that I could find reviews and some videos on the internet as well, and I basically just looked for a seller who would sell that particular model. And I was happy enough, I was lucky enough to find some which actually ships from the UK, because then within the EU there is no taxes and VAT on the product, so whatever I paid for the Chinese seller is actually how much the machine will end up costing me, so there was no additional charges. And of course I realized that there are still a lot of different variances, like from the same seller and for the same size you can get one which is a 3-axis model, which is the one I got, and then you can get also like a 4-axis model which has an extra stepper motor for the 4th axis, so you can use it as some sort of lathe, which I didn't think I would need, so that's why I didn't go for that. And also there are a couple of different spindle options. So for the same seller there was an 800 watt spindle, and there was also a 1.5 kilowatt water-cooled spindle, which I choose at the end. And again, one of the main reasons for me for buying this particular model, because I wanted something which includes everything, so I don't have to shop around for the drivers or the spindle separately. I wanted something which has everything, so I don't run into the problem of accidentally buying something which wouldn't work for my, I don't know, maybe the spindle wouldn't work for my driver, or my driver wouldn't work for my stepper motor. So I wanted a complete kit. And as you can see from this listing, obviously it has the machine, it has the spindle, it has the control box, and it has the water pump because it's a water-cooled one, and it also has the Mark-free software included in it. So it seems that was something which has everything I wanted. Aliexpress itself doesn't support PayPal, so you have an option to pay by credit card, which so that was the option I tried first, and for some reason the payment wasn't going through. So the payment got accepted by my bank, but the money was never withdrawn from my account. So I started messaging the seller directly on via Aliexpress. So we exchanged quite a few emails, and for some reason they couldn't get the funds from my credit card company or the bank. I don't know which one it is. I mean, it doesn't really matter. So I ended up paying for the kit via PayPal and it was basically the guy was giving me his PayPal account. So I paid the money even though I didn't actually had the order, because once I placed the order, after 30 days it got auto cancelled because I didn't pay it through the system. So it was a bit of I don't know. So I had these moments when I thought that maybe they are just going to disappear with my money. So I kept messaging them from time to time, but I mean, obviously it was all right at the end. So one other note with this particular company is they had the 4-axis model on stock in the UK. They didn't have this one on stock in the UK, so they told me that they have to ship it from China to the UK before they can ship it to me. Which on the website they said is going to take 40 to 60 days. It actually took about 2.5 months. So I paid for the model at the end of September, and I got it a week before Christmas. So that was quite a bit of a lead time with the machine. But so I was a little bit concerned. I was hoping that I would get the machine much earlier as well, but well, it didn't turn out that way. But I got it eventually. So today is the let me check. So this is the 5th of January. I got this machine a week before Christmas, and I was away for the Christmas and New Year's Eve. So technically, I got it like, a couple of days ago. So I just managed to get it together, hook it up, get my computer running, get the computer talking to my CNC, and I just did my first cut yesterday on a scrap piece of plywood. So this review basically just summarizes these first couple of days, how I got this machine up and running. Before I start the review, I would like to just note that this is my first machine. I haven't used the CNC before, so I'm just learning the whole, technical details and the and how the technical names and everything. So I might be incorrect in a couple of places. So well, that's because I'm just getting used to this whole thing. This is the quick look at the machine. It came in 2 big boxes. I don't have any videos of how I put the whole thing together. It was actually quite straightforward. So you see a picture of the 2 boxes that came out of the UPS truck. I think it was UPS. And so in the boxes I got a couple of components all boxed up and wrapped in this kind of really thick foam material. And basically probably the biggest one was the bed, which consists everything like here, and then in the middle you have the ball screw for the x-axis, you have the linear guides here, one on each side, and then also the bottom plate for the gantry was also part of it. So I hadn't had to assemble anything there. So the second main bit was the gantry, obviously without the stepper motor, without the spindle, and then including all the wiring loom and this cable truck, there's one here and there's one on the side. I'm going to flip the camera soon. Obviously the spindle was in a separate box, It's what it says on the spindle. It's 1.5 kilowatts and 24,000 RPM, 400 hertz. There's a couple of other things on there, but I don't know what that means. Also, in a separate smaller box, there was a 3-stepper motor with this plastic kit which houses the coupler, which links the stepper motor shaft to the the shaft of the ball screw. And again, separate box was this controller. So obviously the desktop machine wasn't included, so this is like an old compact Evo something Pentium half gigagram, so quite an old one. But I managed to get Windows 7 on it, and it boots up within 1 minute, and it's reasonably fast for the CNC and for using Mach 3. So I'm quite happy with it. And what is not visible from here is the water pump, which is down there, and also got this tool setting tool, or the bit setting tool, which basically just you use this to set the height or your z-axis. And I put this small box which contains Allen keys for putting the whole thing together, keys for changing the tool in the spindle. What else? I got these base jigs, 4 of them, to hold them, whatever material that you're using down, and I got a few bits as well. So I'm going to show that soon. And the mounting was quite simple, because there's 4 Allen screws, 2 here and 2 from the bottom. Obviously this was all included with the Allen key. One mistake I made in the beginning is I put the gantry the other way around, and the screws, the holes didn't actually line up. So I thought that there is some problem with my parts or the machine itself. And then I actually looked up the picture on Aliexpress, and I realized that it should be the other way around, because the cable track should be on the other side. So that was all. So once I turned it around, it was all fine. The next step was to put the spindle in and tighten these screws, and then connect the wire loom and this flexible tubing for the water. So for all 3 axes, the stepper motor was in a separate box. So I was separate motor, 4 screws, and this plastic thingy, and there is a coupler inside to connect the 2 shafts together. This temperature sensor is something that I just added manually. I just wanted to know, how hot this spindle gets. But it's winter, so it's quite cold in my garage anyway, so that's not really a problem. I'm not sure what's the most important thing to mention about the mechanics of the CNC, but so you can see that there are 2 linear guides for each of the axes, and there's a ball screw in the middle, so that's the z-axis. It's pretty much the same for the y, and here in the x-axis. So linear guides here. There is another one on the other side, and the ball screw just runs in the middle. And so you have the base of the CNC with these aluminum extrusions, so you can quite easily mount the jigs or mount whatever material using the jigs. And coming around again, there is the other stepper motor for the other axis. The second one or the third one is up there. And if I spin the camera around, you can see this other side with a stepper motor here. And then you have the cables coming through this cable track. And then everything finally terminates in the control box. So one thing I was slightly worried about is plastic tubings for the water cooling. It was a bit pinched during transit, but it doesn't seem to restrict the water flow, so it's fine at the moment. And slightly hidden out of the way is the water pump. it runs off the control box directly from 24 volts. And if you can see the ratings, well, it's sort of, well, probably I will have a separate picture on this, but it says 2.9 liters per minute maximum, 48 watts, 24 volts, and 0.65 megapascal pressure. So the reason I find this important, because this is a very lousy pump. Well, first of all, it's really noisy, and it creates a lot of white noise. So if I turn the radio on, then the radio just goes, this white noise sound. Not that you can hear the radio when you're using the CNC anyway. But anyway, so this is something that would probably needs to be replaced. Well, if you are really fussy about it. But I've read several forums where people mentioning that the pump is not really a good choice. And what is said in the instructions is you need your own water tank. So that's my water tank. It's a 20-liter tank. The instruction says that you need at least 10 liters of coolant fluid, and you also want to add anti-rust to the water. So a few things about the sort of like the quality and the support of the machine. So the box didn't include any instructions and any software in it. So once I got it, I emailed the seller, and so I sent a message and saying that the product description says that the software is not included, but it wasn't. So they actually sent me a link where I could download the installation package, and after that I still complained that there is no manual to the machine. So they sent me a PDF document, not very detailed, but it has the most basic information that you need to get it going, which is just a simple diagram how all the pieces fit together. So there's no instructions of how assembling the machine, but again, it's fairly large pieces, so it all makes sense. It's quite easy to do. It only took me probably less than an hour to do. And then it goes into details that you should use a desktop computer and not a laptop. And once you've installed Mac free, how you should change the settings, which is a little bit funny because you get the installation package, and then within the installation package you get some additional files that you have to override, copy into your Mac free folder, overwriting the files which came with the installation package. And one file is the config file, which actually is not correct because I had to change the configuration manually based on the documentation, and the other one is the license. So I've done that, and then and also the documentation goes into some big details, like how you set up how you get the machine running for the first time. Like you have to make sure that your pump is working before you turn the spindle on, and some of the safety tips. But it doesn't have anything on what feed rate you should use for a hardwood, or any material that you want to use. So all those are left for you to experiment with and then figure out. This is what I got in the small box, which came with came in the package. So there are 4 Allen keys. There's the 4th really small one in here, and then 2 regular keys. And I got this, I don't know how it's called, but basically that goes into the spindle which holds the bit. So this bigger one is for this one, and for all the others there is a smaller bit which I'm using at the moment. So you need the 3 Allen keys to put the machine together, and you need these 2 keys. These are number 13 and number 15 to change the tool in the spindle. And you got this, I think this is a 6mm end mill, that's a free mill, and then you have 3 of these. I think these are carving bits. So actually you have these 2 which is like a V-shape. There is a 3rd one which I'm using in the spindle, and this, I don't know, this odd shaped, I don't know how it's called. I haven't purchased anything, any additional bits for this machine at the moment. I don't think it's a particularly good example. It's just a scrap piece of plywood that I had laying around, and these are the two example G-code drawings that I had. It's actually, if you see the product description online, then you see these same pieces cut out of plastic. So they supply that. So I just loaded that up into Mark III and I run it, and then I did this yesterday. So obviously not the best quality, because it's probably not the best material for this type of engraving, but you know, it's really nice. It looks good. So a few words about the control box. As you can see, the control is quite simple. You have a power button, and then you turn this on, the fan comes on at the back. So that's the additional extra sound. And because I have my computer running and my Mac III running, if I use my keys, you can hear that the motors are running and the gantry is moving around. And then you have two additional buttons. One is to get the water pump running, and so that's the sound that you get when the pump is running. And it's quite funny because I think it's probably louder than the stepper motors and the spindle altogether. So that's one of the reasons I would like to change that at some point. So I'm going to turn this off now. And then you have the second button, which turns the spindle controller on. And again, the instruction says that it's a generic controller which can probably control many different spindles, but it's now set for this particular spindle, so don't mess around with the settings. But I managed to get into the settings somewhere here, like, you know, I mean, I don't even know what this all means. So I'm just going to come out of here, and then you have a couple of options to, well, first of all, then you set the hertz, and you use this to turn the spindle on. So you can hear that it spins up, and then you use this button to, well, again, this doesn't have any documentation, so I'm guessing when the light is flashing, that means it's showing the actual values. So that's the actual hertz values, the amps, and then the voltage. And then there is a flashing voltage. Again, I don't know what that means. And then it goes back to the hertz that you're setting. And then you can turn it up, and it spins up. And then you hit stop, and then it winds down. And then you have an additional button to change the direction. So then it will stop and start rotating the other direction. Within this controller, there are some other settings in the labels, like RPM and percentage. I don't know how to get those or what they actually mean, but it's basically 400 hertz for 24,000 RPM. So it's about 60 RPM for every hertz. So you can, you know, do the math yourself. I'll just show you some of the movements. So these are all half speed, and with the shift there's full speed. So there are no limit switches on this, so if you're not careful, then you just bang the carriage at the end of the guides, and it just stops with a loud bang. So that's something that you need to take care of. So very quick view of the back of the control box. These are your 3 axes. That's the connector for the spindle. That's for the pump. Obviously the parallel port. There is a hole for it for some sort of switch. Maybe that was an afterthought, but that's not used. So that's just an open hole. And everything, obviously everything was included. So like, you know, the parallel cable, all these cables were in the kit. So the only additional bit that I spent on this machine was the tank for the water, and that was it. So this kit really comes as, you know, as a full kit. So this is why I liked it, and it seems to be working nicely. Getting my laptop talk to the CNC wasn't actually easy. So as I said, the installation package of Mach 3 come in a separate like zip file that I downloaded off the internet based on the link that I was given, and so it should have contained all the config bits, but it didn't. So there was a separate document explaining me how I should set up the communication and some of the other details. And so I had to change the kernel speed. So I'm just going to include some screenshots of my actual settings. So I had to change the kernel speed, and then some of the settings in the motor outputs, and then some settings in the input, which is actually just the E-stop needed to be changed. And once that was done, there was this other option to configure the motor. So the all these acceleration speeds and all the other details. So it's really easy. I mean, just couple of changes, and once that was done, it was supposed to be running, but it just didn't. So nothing was working. So if I move the cursor around, so the DRO would change, would update accordingly. So if I just press the button or use the jog, so the DRO was always working, but the machine wasn't working, wasn't moving at all. And so I did quite a few things, and so I did two things, and I don't know which one actually helped. The one thing I did was I changed the settings for my parallel port. So if I go into Device Manager, and so again, this computer is not really fast for for a lot of things, but it just for this controlling the CNC. So what I did in the parallel port is there is this setting for import settings to use interrupt. So I ticked that because I thought that maybe the timing is off, and that's why the CNC doesn't understand the messages coming from the laptop. And so I was playing around with these settings, and what I've done after that is I thought that maybe there is something wrong with the Mark III. So I uninstalled it, I installed it again, that didn't happen. So I uninstalled it again for the second time, and I got the latest version of the Mark III site, which you can download. I think there's a demo version or something. So my Mark III is actually 3.0.3, version 3.043.066. And so once I've installed it, the installation package also installed a printer driver, a parallel port driver, which that was probably the most important thing. So after the installation, it made me reboot my computer, which I did, and after that, I've overwritten the files that was so I've overwritten the files in the Mark III folder with the files that I was given by by the Chinese guy, which is basically the license and the settings, and then there was a couple of other files. And so once I restarted my actually latest version of Mark III, it was coming up with a license that I got, and then I made the same changes again in the settings, and then it just started working. So again, it's probably the printer driver which was in the latest package of Mac which made the whole thing working, but maybe my fact that I played around with the parallel port settings also helped. So but that only took me about a day to figure out, testing all the different things, and I was quite happy because my second option would have been to install XP on this laptop, because XP definitely works, and Windows 7, well, I wasn't sure if it's working or not. I know that Windows 7 64-bit wouldn't be working, but this is an old machine, so it's using Windows 7 32 bits. But so I got it working, so it's all fine, and I've seen other videos on YouTube where people are using their Windows 7 machines controlling the CNC, and they are using it, and at the same time they are watching YouTube and browsing on the net, so it all shouldn't be a problem. Probably the only reason I wouldn't do that, because this is a really low power machine, so I just want to make sure that it gets all the resources to control the CNC and not doing anything else.